What exactly is the political aftermath of Cyrus Jerongo's death? Now, in my series of videos on this channel, we have looked at various angles, we have looked at various issues connected to the still very mysterious car crash that ended the life of former Lugari legislator Cyrus Jerongo. Don't you find it super interesting that shortly after I released my last video, where I had a section towards the end, where I spoke about the mila na desturi ya Watiriki. Okay, Jirongo was a Tiriki. Don't you find it very interesting that a few hours later, the Tiriki community came out into the public and they said a lot of things. And they more than confirmed what we said right here on this channel. Don't you find that interesting? Well, I did. By the way, in one of the comments, on a video in this series of the Jirongo death, somebody said the contents of this video are like from a movie script, an action-packed, tense movie script. I'm sure most of you caught that comment, although I've put it in my own words. But if you are thinking that now we move to the boring stuff, the political aftermath, my friend, you're very mistaken. Actually, that is where all the action and drama and suspense is going to be very shortly. Especially if we look at history, what has happened in the past to similar political assassinations, because that is exactly what I believe this is, and a vast majority of Kenyans believe the same. And so you have a very, very interesting show to look forward to. But I have yet another riddle for you. You remember the last political riddle in my last video? I have yet another one for you, and this one is key because, in my opinion, it is also a clue in the Jirongo Manenos that identifies his killers. Okay? Now this is the riddle. In very many political assassinations in Kenya in the past, when police start the investigations, they have always been very keen to introduce a mysterious woman. Okay? The fallen Kenyan is of course married, but this woman is not his wife. It is very, very common that they introduce a woman into the equation. So, my question is, what objective does this usually serve? Or what objective do they think this one will serve towards their interests? And I'm talking about the police, serikali, of course, who order the police to do stuff, and of course sometimes the serikali do their own things, and then they order the police to clean up after them. Okay? I will give you the answer towards the tail end of this video, and I will explain why, in my opinion, it is a key clue to identify Cyrus Jerongo's killers. Okay? For now, let's get this show on the road. Twende kazi. Before we continue the Jirongo Manenos, there is something that has come up in our politics. that is most disturbing. A recent opinion poll is telling us that support for the broad-based government has improved so much over the last few weeks that in fact it has almost doubled. What? Hey! Well, it seems that the nation called Kenya is well on its way to being the next Singapore. Kwa hivyo kaeni kando. Kenya is going to be a Singapore. Kwani iko nini? Eish. Now, I am not going to say very much about these opinion polls. I am not even going to remind you of the history of opinion polls in Kenya, which have been skewed, twisted, rigged, etc., to cover the interests of those who have commissioned these opinion polls. Because I think we all know opinion polls are not cheap. Okay? I'm not even going to remind you about that. Instead, what I'm going to do is address my fellow bloggers, people who cover politics, people who you and I rely on to give us inside information, to give us analysis on politics. I have a little advice for them. Okay? Humble advice. I don't know everything, but just a little advice based on my little experience. Please, even if somebody has helped you along the way, done major things for you and in the development of your channel, try your best not to be tempted by money, not to be tempted to be a conduit for propaganda and misinformation. Remember, in what we do, there is one thing you can never avoid. And that is, if you don't do something that will stand the test of time, it will always, without fail, catch up with you. And it is not going to be comfortable. It is going to be very, very shameful. So please, I know things are very difficult. I know money is tempting. But please, do only what can stand the test of time. Now, of course, it is possible that what I've just done, nimechezea mbuzi guitar. That is very possible. However, in my opinion, I have avoided judgment. Because one day if I'm asked, why did you not tell them? Why did you not warn them? At least I have avoided that situation where I'll be asked such a question. Okay? Let's get on with the Jirongo Manenos. And please, I beg you, don't ask me what my opinion is on if support for the broad-based government has doubled. Please, hiyo sinulize. I'm sure most of you know why. Because on this channel, we are very sensitive about the precious time of those who take time to take in our videos. We do not want, and we will never, waste people's precious time with stories ajaba. Okay? Now, the late Cyrus Jerongo's personal life was super fascinating. This man was a polygamist. You will remember, I believe in my very first video of this series, I told you that Jirongo, at the time he passed on, had 10 active wives. Now, the use of the word active means that there are other wives who are not active. Okay? Now, in today's Daily Nation, they have done an interview with Cyrus Jerongo's first wife, a woman he fell in love with, and even eloped with her. Yeah, she had just left school. Okay? And she has revealed that at one point, 18 women were introduced as the wives of the late Cyrus Jerongo. Now, I know how most of us feel about polygamy. Yeah? And especially those of us on this channel who are very opposed to polygamy, hate polygamy, and yet they have some mpango wakando. They have a few girlfriends somewhere else. Okay, but they're against polygamy. Okay, I'm telling you, humans are very interesting, super fascinating. Humans, you can't understand them, no matter what you do. And we also have right here on this channel, yeah, I'm very sure, okay, women who are involved in a relationship with a married man. Wako. Now wako wengi, okay? And these are the people on the front line of criticizing a polygamous arrangement. Kweli, nyani aioni nini? People don't see themselves at all. They just focused on the other person and what is wrong with the other person. Because somebody told me yesterday that those who are close to the late Jirongo understood him, yeah, and in a way admired him. Because while other people have mipango za kando, Jirongo did not hide, and he made them official. He made them his wives. That is what somebody told me. But please let us stay focused. Okay? I need to ask you a question. Will that cloud your judgment when we are looking at the terrible, brutal way in which a precious life was ended? Will we ignore the facts? Will we give up looking deep into this just because we don't like polygamous men? Will we do that? And that was not the only habit of the late Jirongo that was not good. I was also informed yesterday that at the Karen Oasis, the last place Jirongo was seen alive, we have eyewitnesses who say he fell because he was drunk. He fell at least twice. He was so drunk, he could not successfully keep on standing. Yeah, and so he fell twice. Again, will those of us who get so drunk that we start singing naughty traditional songs at public places, will those people condemn Jirongo? Will they? Or will that cloud our judgment? Will that cloud our determination to get to the bottom of what happened to this Kenyan? Now I hope the answer to those two questions I've asked is no. Now there's a new theory, yeah, linked to the mysterious pro box about what happened to Jirongo. Now just be patient. We're coming to the political aftermath very shortly, yeah, and I'm going to cover this very quickly. There are people who are saying that Jirongo realized that he was being followed, and in his effort to shake off those who were following him, he ended up on the road to Naivasha. Okay? Now maybe the first question we need to ask ourselves is, this new theory, who is it going to favor? Is it going to favor those who want to get to the bottom of this, or is it going to favor the government? Of course it's going to favor the government, because I'm sure you realize that one of the things that this theory does is to wipe out completely all conspiracy theories that this accident was set up. Okay? And yet we know, I've just told you, when Jirongo was so drunk, yeah, he was so intoxicated, that it is highly unlikely that he would have made it to Naivasha. And in any case, Imagine a situation, if it was you, involved in a high-speed car chase. You're trying to shake off, people are following you. Don't you think that you would call a number of your friends and inform them of what is happening? Don't you think that is the most obvious thing you do? Yeah. So let's not waste any more time on this story ajaba, in my opinion. Now, based on Kenya's political history, the aftermath of political assassinations is not always very predictable. Okay? What I mean is that many times people predict there'll be chaos, and those chaos will be so serious as to cause the government serious problems. However, in many instances what has happened is that there have been pockets of protests and so on and so forth. But then the whole thing with time has simmered down and has been forgotten. However, having said that, usually the political consequences and repercussions are usually much easier to predict. After the assassination of Tom Mboya on the streets of Nairobi on July 5th, 1969, the political consequences that followed were serious. And I believe so serious that, in my opinion, they were the main trigger that led to the Ichaweri blood oaths. Okay, we have covered that in previous videos of this channel. I'm sure most of us know what I'm talking about. That is evidence that the political consequences were very, very serious. And remember, one of the things that followed the assassination of Mboya was the October 25th, 1969. Mboya was gunned down in July. The October 25th, 1969 Kisumu massacre. A very dark, sad, very sad chapter of Kenyan history. Jirongo was of course not a political giant like Tom Mboya was, but there are a lot of similarities in the two men and the circumstances surrounding their deaths. By the way, Mboya also had a problem of women. But bila kizungu mingi, what ended up happening is that an entire community, the Luo community, from whence Tom Mboya hailed, ended up being ostracized from the country called Kenya. Okay, no development. In fact, there are many instances where members of the Luo community had to pretend they're lawyers in order to get basic health care assistance. And then, of course, thanks to the massive propaganda campaign by the intelligence community then, which was very successful, we ended up in a country where the rest of us like stereotyping the Luo. Okay? Msichana yangu, sitaki ulewe na Mjaluo. Wewe niletee mtu mwingine yeyote, lakini Mjaluo hapana. Utaniua ukiniletea Mjaluo. Sitaki. That kind of nonsense. Well done, gorgeous Kikuyu lasses who have gotten married in the land of the Luo. Well done. Regulars on this channel will know that even my late political lecturer, with all his smartness, with all his excellent extraordinary qualities, had issues with the Luo. That is how effective that propaganda by the intelligence community in the 60s was, and the impact is still being felt in Kenya today. Okay? In Jirongo's case, I think we can very confidently say that the Mulembe nation will not vote for two-term. Okay? If anything, they will now be violently opposed to a second term for President Ruto. Okay? That is a given. And so all the hard work that has been done in the Mulembe nation, people camping there for weeks, all that work has been wiped out in one deft stroke. Okay? Because you see, the vast majority in Mlembe Nation, where Jirongo hailed from, do not believe this was an ordinary accident. And they blame the government. End of story. It doesn't matter how many CCTV footages are released. It doesn't matter what we are told by the government or by the police. That is what they believe. Now hawatoki hapo. And so, the vote reach Mlembe Nation for this government in the next general elections. Tawe. Gone. Hiyo imeenda kabisa. Okay? That is one major consequence. And in my opinion, it is so major, it is more than major. Number two is that a lot of anti-government, anti-Ruto information has now been very suddenly released to be amplified and emphasized on. I even believe that people are going to use this in the next general election, political campaigns. What am I talking about? Towards the end of his life, for a reason I am yet to understand, Bwana Jirongo suddenly became a podcaster, a blogger. And he has a lot of material that he put online with a lot of information that Kenyans are now going to go through with a fine tooth comb. Just to give you a very, very relevant example, I want to play you a clip from one particular podcast that also included politician Babu Wino and Cyrus Jerongo. Listen in. I'll be back shortly.
Having spent some time with him, and I know that from experience now that Ruto has a bad heart. Is it true?
He's not like you and me. He's not forgiving. If you wanted that answer. He's not. When I quarrel with you now, I'll forget about it in 10 minutes. And I'll believe it is over. But we are not all made the same. God makes all of us. We are all one, as far as I'm concerned. Because in all of us, we are spirit, we are soul. Spirit is one. So we are all interconnected somehow as the human race. But there is that earthly part of us, which is the ego, that drives our pride. It can sometimes taint your thinking to believe you are superhuman. It can sometimes taint your thinking to believe you are superhuman.
Do you think that Cyrus Jerongo was qualified to analyze and tell us about the character of President Ruto? I think so. In fact, I think he was overqualified. And that is what his opinion was. Super fascinating. Yeah, because we have done videos before on this channel, including sensitive videos that touch on that very issue he has brought out in that small soundbite I've just played for you. And please allow me a small aside here. Okay, Jirongo seems to have understood the difference between the spirit, the soul, the body, and the subconscious. Unajua, hiyo inachanganya watu wengi sana. Many people don't understand. But very briefly, the spirit is from the Most High. And as we speak, when Jirongo passed on, his spirit returned where it came from. It returned to the Most High. His soul proceeded to wait for judgment. And then his body, which will be interred, has remained here on earth. And that is exactly what is going to happen to all of us. What we're wearing, what we're so proud of, what we take good care of and we take it to the gym, etc., etc., is just a bodysuit which we're going to live right here on this earth. Okay? What is important is that guy inside you called your soul. Okay? The one who makes all the decisions. And sadly, many times these decisions are made while completely ignoring one's spirit. so that wherever that spirit is after the fact, it will be able to say very accurately, nilimwambia lakini hakusikia. Anyway, it is very difficult to imagine Cyrus Jerongo's funeral not having a lot of politics. That one is very hard to imagine. Okay? I think it is going to be very political. Extremely political. And not in a good way for our dear government. Okay? And I believe all that drama at the funeral, which so far has been scheduled for the 30th of December, the 30th of this month, all that drama will give us very useful pointers to some of the other political consequences. At this early juncture, I want to speculate that some people are going to win elective posts, and the main cause will be their relationship with the late Cyrus Jerongo. Yeah, remember I told you, Kenyans worship the dead. It's very wrong, but that is the reality. Now, the answer to the riddle. When you introduce a woman into the equation, yeah, it removes the government from the whole story. It now becomes a personal story, which involved a woman and your enemies. Nothing to do with the government. And so that is the chief, main reason why in many political assassination in the motherland, there's always been a woman introduced. It even happened in the Ouko case. John Robert Ouko, the former foreign affairs minister. Apparently, he was having an affair like many politicians. And that woman was introduced into the whole mix. Yeah? And it was even suggested that she could be linked to one of the motives behind the killing of Ouko. So it is nothing new. It is even super fascinating that Jirongo himself mentioned it. Yeah, he said when people are assassinated in Kenya, there is a place where a woman will be introduced. Yeah, I believe that particular video has already gone viral online. So that is the answer to the riddle. And I believe the link to the latest Jirongo controversy is clear. Yeah. And I'm sure you also remember that somebody has also tried to push very hard the narrative that he was dropping a woman in Naivasha. Okay? But at least now you know why a woman will always be introduced. And in my opinion, it is the killers showing their hand. Because obviously, the real killers want to divert attention from themselves and they want people to suspect somebody else. I'm sure you get it. Right. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart, friends of Kumekucha, supporters of Kumekucha, for what you have done in this season of giving to Kumekucha Chris. You know, times are very hard. Kenyans are suffering. And of course it is reflected in the response. But what has really touched me is the effort that has been made by many of you. Asanteni sana, and God bless you, and replenish your storehouse, from whence you fetched your gift 100-fold. Amen. Now our latest offer, based on this season of giving, is about to come to a close. Yeah, you can see details on the screens right now. If your gift is at least Kenya shillings 2,500, you're going to get something very amazing. Yeah, and that is the golden key, permanent golden key to everything Kumekucha, past, present, and future. Everything, including ebooks. Okay? Just use the details you see on the screens right now and rush and do this before the offer comes to an end. Now immediately receive the golden key. You will immediately receive a lot of sensitive information, including information very closely linked to what we've been discussing on our video today. So please move with speed to avoid disappointment. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.